So, Jenna, again, I have a few thoughts about this. I think, it's no question that one of the big issues that is faced by the LGBTQ plus community is homelessness. And I was actually looking at a GLAAD article and some research before I jumped on today. And, there's some stats that say that LGBTQ folks are 120% more likely to experience homelessness. In 2015, it was estimated that about 40% of the homeless population was also identified as LGBTQ. We know that that rate is exceptionally high amongst LGBTQ youths, especially folks who identify as trans. It's even and trans folks of color too. So this is a huge issue that has to be addressed, and it connects to everything else. So when we were going through and talking about some of the issues that disproportionately affect LGBTQ folks, I was thinking about how lack of stable housing is something that is affected by poverty. And we just discussed how LGBTQ folks are, more likely to be in poverty. Stable housing is affected by wage discrimination, and we've seen the problems in the workplace and the lack of protections for LGBTQ folks, and employment security, as well as sexual violence. Sexual violence definitely affects your ability to have stable access to stable housing. And so as a result of all of that, LGBTQ folks are at a disproportionately higher risk whenever there's a natural or environmental or man-made disaster. So look at what's happening with COVID right now. And so a lot of the folks in our community may also hold frontline jobs or low-paying, low-wage, minimum wage jobs. And as a result of that, their employment has been it hasn't been stable over the last couple months, and they're also now being put at an even higher risk, a disproportionately higher risk for COVID contraction. And as we just discussed, this idea that lack of access to certain healthcare amenities or health insurance is even worse for folks in our community. These are all things that are all connected, right? And as someone who is in agriculture and looks at it from that way, just in agriculture in general in North Carolina, 1 in 5 children are food insecure in this state. And so think about how many children are LGBTQ and homeless. Obviously, they're going to be suffering from food insecurity and malnutrition at an even higher rate. They probably are likely to live in food deserts where they have a lack of access to healthy, nutritious, locally grown food. And then, on top of that, when we think about rural health has its own set of issues in and of itself. If you live out in a rural community in North Carolina, it can take up to like an hour to access a hospital, depending upon where you are. And then we're also seeing all these regional hospital closures. And so think about what it's like getting care and treatment, especially if you are a member of the LGBTQ community, and if you're not cisgender, right, and you walk into a hospital, you're going to be treated differently. That's the reality of it. And so if you're also talking about a rural area, imagine that treatment is going to be very different even than in Raleigh or Durham or Chapel Hill, where there are already issues with how LGBTQ folks are treated by healthcare professionals. So there's just, so many things. I think everything intersects with each other. And I think it's really important for us to realize that, and that, our movements are not, just moments. Like, these are things, the fight for social justice is something that is not going to stop, right? And until, basically to paraphrase Fannie Lou Hamer, until all of us are free, none of us are free. And so we have to keep fighting every single day. If we see folks that are marginalized, we're not all free.